I'm Holly Edwards, and this is my co-host Prabhat Gautam, and we are sitting here. We're so honored to be sitting here with the lovely Nicole Buffett, artist, activist, and somebody who is really shifting the paradigm in really human consciousness. So, Nicole, thank you so much for being here and sitting down with us today. And I'm just going to dive right into it, if that's okay with you.
That's great. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Prabhat.
I'm just here. Thank you for being had here. This is good.
Yeah. So we really want to know, like, how was it? How did you feel about where you grew up and kind of what that was like?
Okay. Let's see where I grew up. I grew up in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a family of artists and musicians. And I actually grew up with my grandmother living in the same city as my father and mother. And it was a really shared space. My grandmother was a singer. She's not alive anymore. She passed away in 2004.
What's the grandma's name?
Susan Buffett.
Susan Buffett. Okay.
Yeah. And so my father and my mother at the time had a music studio in the basement of our Victorian home in San Francisco. And so I had a life, I grew up having a childhood full of artists, watching my parents be working artists, being around working artists, being around an incredibly diverse group of people. And my grandmother, very progressively at that time, was living on her own, apart from my grandfather, which was kind of unheard of at that time. Coming from their generation, my grandfather had his life in Omaha and wanted her to live her life as an independent, free-thinking, creative, also activist at that time in San Francisco. So she had her own home in San Francisco and was doing her music as well as her activism, which was really involved with the HIV/AIDS and gay community in San Francisco.
Wow.
She was also, she exposed me early to like Tibetan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, and was really interested in helping people die and having people come to her home
To transition.
Yeah, to transition. So my life as a young person was full of creative freedom, power, and just really, I was really exposed to spirituality in a way that I feel deeply grateful for.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of like beautiful, colorful experiences. What an amazing way to kind of, be raised in that environment. And you were also, what was it like growing up with a twin? Because you must, I don't know if everybody knows you have a twin.
Yes, I'm an identical twin. It's I think that it's really such a gift having a twin, because you, from an age before you have a concept of being connected and having what kind of oneness is, you have the experience of oneness where your experience is the other's experience, and you can constantly be reflecting that back off of each other in ways of like, we're sharing in it, but also how am I doing it that's different than how you're doing it, because we're both in the same situation, we're both here together. And it's funny, I always remember like if she got something red, like it was a piece of clothing that we both wanted, it's like she got the red, it was like, red's taken, like red's off limits.
Yeah.
Now, okay, you're the red person, I have to be anything but red. So there was also this whole like thing around like individuation, comparing, that was a big part of being a twin, that as much as you were totally one, you were also really faced with the choice of what makes me unique, what makes me different. So I think it just brings in a lot of self-awareness and sensitivity to that.
That's great.
I have younger brothers that are twins, so I know a little bit about twins. And they, I think around middle school, went through this phase where they didn't dress the same, right? Because my mom loved dressing them up like that.
Right.
And they dressed very differently, and they sort of had to find their identity. And then the question was like, will they ever talk again, right? Because they just were not that friendly. But then they became close again. I just think that's for some twins, part of the process of self-discovery, because the rest of us, we're just us, right? But in the case of twins, you're always seen as one half of this pair, and it's a different dynamic.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think also another question for you would be, how did you discover really like your purpose or your greater purpose, or how did you kind of align with the work that you do in
Your activism.
and you do a lot of different, you have a lot of modalities, but in your activism especially.
That's a great question. Well, I'd say that also started really early. I think, let's see. First off, I realized that there was our school system, our educational system, very early on was just very flawed in the extent that I would wake up having like deep phobic like anxiety, where I would just be so scared to go to school. I was so scared of the pressure. And both my sister and I both had a lot of anxiety, and it came a lot from this feeling of it just being fear-based and having information pushed into us and then having to regurgitate information and feeling like that was your value and that was your worth. And there was something that was very traumatic about that. I think from early on we were both like very viscerally aware of that. And for me, my escape quite literally from that space and from that interpersonal dynamic of there's one answer and you either know it or you don't know it, and you're either going to succeed or you're going to fail, and somebody else gets to decide whether that happens or not. I realized early on that the way out of that was by being an artist. Somehow, first of all, it was kind of what I was best at, and it's what I loved doing. It was like, this is what I'm good at. You know, there was the girl in the class that was good at math, and I'd ask her for help, and then she'd ask me, you know, I need to draw like a bunny. Will you help me? Like, I'd be like, I got that. Can you help me with this? Help me with this math problem. I'm not, you know. So like understanding early on, I feel really, really blessed to understand early on what my skills are, what my strengths are, and that's always been art and creativity. But as well as it just being a natural gift, it also was quite literally like an escape out of that. And I felt like it held me inside of a bubble where none of that could really touch me. It was like, well, you know what? I don't really need I don't need to play into this game because I'm creating my own.
You're anchored in that, and you're so rooted in that, and to have that at such a young age, I mean, was essential really to kind of like your journey inward and how you express and how you like create the art that you create, and I think that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, to tell us about the art. So you know, you do painting, you do a lot of stuff.
Yes, I identify primarily as a painter. I'm a mixed media painter. I started out up until about 2000. I was a figurative painter, and then
tell the viewers the difference, because I'm not a painter.
So figurative is like representational, where you have images, you have trees, you have things that you can identify as something. Person, place, or things. And then I transitioned to becoming a fully abstract painter, which is amorphic. There's not necessarily anything recognizable image-wise. There's shapes and colors and composition, but it's generally atmospheric and kind of in more of a rudimentary space of a visually neutral space where you're experiencing it as an open-ended image of possibility as to what you perceive and what you see and how you see. So it opens it up into the realm of that being open-ended. In 2000 I went to India, and I created an internship with an amazing company in India. It was a textile company that preserved all these natural ways of dyeing and wood block printing in India out in the countryside. And the whole task was like create a whole body of work around being in India. And at that time I thought, you know, I had a camera. I thought, okay, this is awesome. I'm gonna like be painting all these people and portraits, and I was really excited thinking that's what I was gonna go do. And by the midway through, I was also doing textile design, which was starting to come away from figurative representation and go more into kind of design is 2D, it's flat, it's a pattern of sorts. So that's starting to kind of dissolve the 3-dimension of representation happening. And so I started doing that, and it was kind of a constant, kind of a process where by the time I got back from India, and I was doing a lot of yoga at the time as well, when I thought about how I would represent or represent my experience in India, I really wanted to share a feeling. And it was more of like a dream, and it was more internal than something that you could see with your eyes, or something that
More heart driven.
yeah, it was a feeling. So that's where I kind of took the leap into pure abstraction, and I started using Indian spices and pigments and different teas and things. And so I just, it went way more ethereal and spiritual. And so it's been kind of, that started the path as for me now, still working somewhat in that way, although I'm bringing more design back into my work now. I'm working with a lot of sacred geometry now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's actually one of my favorite pieces that you shared with me. This beautiful, I mean, your art is just amazing and captivating. It invokes really like the feeling and an emotion, and it's amazing. But so where can people go to see your art, to purchase your art, if they wanted to learn more about it? Do you have what platforms?
So I have a website, which is my name. And right now, something I'm really excited about, I've just been starting to do about a year ago, is I'm creating something called medicine mandalas. And it really combines my work as a healer and my work through my own healing, which is one and the same thing, and my work as an artist. And what I do is I basically create a mandala, which is usually they're circular, and these panels I work on are circular. It's a place for focus, for meditation, for grounding. And I sit with you or with who I'm working with, and we discuss kind of what their vision of it is in life, what they're looking to kind of bring more out, from within their life. And then I create something that's based on their energy field, and it's like a signature map, mirror, cosmic mirror of who they are.
I love that.
It's been really, really amazing.
Yeah.
When you do that all in front of them, or you get a feeling for them and then you do it on your own
Yeah,
and they
so
come
I
back?
have a meeting and we discuss things, and we have kind of a ceremony together.
Yeah.
And I take notes and we talk, and then it's been about 3 months really, and then I'll work on it for 3 months, and then I'll deliver it. And we have another ceremony discussing how they feel about the piece, and it's been really amazing.
It'd be great if you could do that and we get that
I
on
would
film.
love that.
As the opening and closing session, maybe pieces of your art,
Okay, great, I'd love that.
So we now get you back to come do that. Because I've seen your mandala pieces when you showed it to us today. They're amazing.
Yeah.
And I love that they're circular, because you're so used to, the rectangular school, the normal canvases.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first thing that jumps out at you, that it's like, I do want you to do a clock. Like, I'd love that as your mandala.
You could
So I can
turn
know
one
what
of
time
mine
it
into a
is,
clock.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, people have like vision boards and things like that, but to create that experience, I see it as like, kind of like a vision board, but more energetically aligned with like tapping into that, and then kind of creating that for somebody to really have throughout their life and their journey at whatever moment they're in. I think that's so beautiful, really.
It's really
And
like
special.
the sacred space
Very
of the self,
sacred.
the sacred self space of connecting into the self and the sacred self. So sacred self healing is actually what that is.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'd be so honored to share that experience with you.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
So I know you're doing an art showing in New York soon, right? Is that public, or do we just now?
No, I'm not doing a showing.
Okay.
I actually just completed a mandala
Okay.
for my cousin and his husband, and it's actually in honor of my grandmother.
Oh wow.
So my grandmother loved the color yellow, and it was like sunshine yellow, everything, and she was like a beam of sunshine. So my cousin painted one of his walls in his home this yellow color. He actually has my grandmother's ashes, and we decided that I should do a mandala that represents her energy, and then do actually a wall mural, this will be the first time I'm going to do this. Continue the mandala onto the wall.
Wow. And so you're gonna go to New York for that?
Yeah. I'm about.
Hopefully you document it all. We love
that's
photos and everything.
that's what someone else had mentioned.
Yeah.
I will.
Because it'll be so meaningful.
Absolutely. What is one wish that you would have for everyone And if you
You get a mandala, I
if
get a
you
mandala.
could, yeah, everyone gets a
Yeah,
mandala.
yeah.
If you could just sprinkle whatever it was right now on everybody, what would that be? What would that look like?
That would look like everyone knowing that they are God,
Everyone
and to
knowing
not
that
be
they are
afraid
God.
of that.
Yeah.
And to start learning to be at ease with that, the divine within, and that it's a big responsibility, but it's also a big blessing. So
Not be afraid of their power. Yeah, I love that. Oh, that's
and
amazing.
surrender to the peace and the fulfillment that comes from that.
Yes, definitely.
And the responsibility,
And the
right?
responsibility, exactly.
To look after others as best you can.
Mhm.
That's great. So I actually want to talk to you about that. Like, you know, you come from an affluent family, as people know, right? People should know. But there has to be a lot of judgment, especially as a kid, right? Where everyone's like, well, she's a rich girl, so her life's easy, and they don't understand the layers of a person's life. Did that make you more introverted as a kid, do you think? And that's why you sort of found art?
Well, no, actually, and that was
Or
like
you
kind
extroverted?
of, well, my family being very, setting it apart from other, families of mega wealth,
Yeah.
is that was really kind of kept undercover for quite some time, except for, so we went to private schools and that my grandparents paid for, but otherwise my life, as a young person with my mom and dad was pretty like middle class, artist, creative, young urban professional level. But then once, it started kind of building momentum, my grandfather's, fortune and fame kind of was rising. It kind of couldn't be hidden anymore.
Right.
And
Your
I
last name's
carried the
still Buffett,
name.
so
Yeah,
people will figure that out.
and it was getting like, it was
Not
there was-
buffet. They like Buffett.
Exactly, two T's.
Yeah.
So, well, I think that it started getting, for me to, I started realizing that responsibility and
Right.
looking at the capacity and the possibilities around like having a voice that people listen to, maybe for the wrong reasons. I mean, the reason being because of my grandfather, it's like, well, I mean, but still, if someone's listening, then that's a gift. And it really started me having to think about what it is that I would like to share and who I am. So it's all a gift.
And in that space, like you've aligned yourself with so many different causes and charities, and you support many. How do you pick the causes and the charities that you're aligned with?
It's really the causes, as we heal ourselves, that's the best cause, because we are modeling and embodying what it is to be human, and we're constantly looking to each other to learn what that is. So like the cause of being vegan, the cause of even just doing family healing, how we communicate with ourselves, nonviolent communication, veganism, meditation, being an artist, looking at like changing economic structures,
Paradigm shift.
Shift.
I mean, so talk about like
Transformational
what your
paradigm,
vegan journey, like, why is that important for you as part of your paradigm shift? And it's so valuable to have you being such an outspoken person about why that matters to you.
It's really the bottom line, the realization around being vegan is that we, for myself, it's about having a boundary around suffering. Because to the extent that I am aligned with any suffering of any other being is the extent that I'm aligning it with myself. So it's saying I'm actually okay suffering like that.
Interesting.
As well.
That's very interesting.
So it's really a self-care practice as much of it as it is the animals and the others. And the reason why it's self-care is because there's oneness, and to deny that oneness is the only thing that will allow us to be anything but vegan. And that's why films like Earthlings and Dominion and some of the more intense films where you're seeing the horrors of what's happening, as awful as that is, that's the awakening, where that's the place where you do have a visceral response of like, oh wow, that's terrible. If you were there, you wouldn't let that happen. If you wouldn't do that, you wouldn't want to be a part of it. And then the next question is, so why am I? So let's not do that. Because it hurts me. It actually hurts everyone.
Absolutely.
So So that's like that was the awakening piece in my consciousness around veganism. And then also just, through years of like my yogic practice and being very extreme about things, I was very
Right.
extreme about things, doing like fasting and intense yoga.
You committed.
I
You commit.
And I think the challenge with all of it is like staying grounded. So staying embodied, because then that can create problems as well. Whether it's emotional imbalances, not being able to be present, not being able to be healthy, balanced. So kind of staying in my feet, veganism and being vegan, being plant-based, whatever you want to call it, not eating animals and not eating anything from animals, allows me to have a high vibration while still nourishing my body and not depriving my body and not getting into that pattern.
Which is essential
Yeah.
for optimal health
Right.
and wellness.
Yeah.
And you're a
Exactly.
women's rights advocate, so I mean, so that's part of that whole thing. With so many of the animals exploited are female, cows and chickens, and their reproductive ability is why they're targeted. So
Right. And also women's rights is like earth rights. It's Gaia
Right.
and it's the earth mother, and it's this terrible habit of taking and sucking, and the whole dairy thing is like the oxytocin that's released when we have milk.
Yeah.
It's very much like we as humans are graduating out of being children. Like we have to actually become adults, and that I feel like becoming plant-based is actually like growing ourselves up and stopping this kind of babyish kind of takey constantly from Mother Earth.
Yeah.
It's like the animals are also her children, so we're just stealing from her first children. We're the older siblings that are being
I love that. No, it makes sense.
We're being greedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's very like shaming, But
But the other thing is, you really do come from a loving space, though. I mean, that's the thing that I've always
Yeah.
liked about you. In the 8 years I've known you, whatever it is now, that you're always such a light. Because a lot of people in all the activist movements, they can get a little negative and they can get a little angry when they see wrongdoing, but you always are supportive and so kind to everyone.
Thank you, but I think it's just about taking responsibility and understanding what we're actually doing and how it's serving everyone and everything. So just to the same extent, if someone else is suffering, if we're in a positive place of wholeness and well-being, that is actually you're holding that vibration and making that real, and that's really the number one thing to do.
Yeah. Heal yourself and you could heal the world. Yeah.
So great. We're so happy
Yes,
to know
thank
you.
you.
Like, it's so good. Yeah, so I guess, is there any sort of like big thing you want to leave the world with, because you've done so much and you care so deeply about everything, but like kind of what Holly said before, you want the best for everyone, but like what can they do today? And they're, obviously work on ourselves every day, but what can they do today to help people around them?
I think being aware of where we put our energy and attention, and not being less focused on where we're going and more focused on who we're being, and coming into that value, the value that is inherently built into you at every moment, at every moment, no matter where you are. So we become less identified as external beings and more identified as like the home is here inside of our bodies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Feeling at home.
Yeah. The answers aren't outside of us, they're within us. Yeah. The best way to look out is in, kind of.
Right.
Yeah. I love that.
This is so great. We love you so much. This is great. And you two will be back soon for the mandala ceremony.
Yes,
so we'll get back.
definitely.
I love that.
And I know everybody wants to know where they can find out your information again.
So just on my website,
Which is?
NicoleBuffett.com. Two
Perfect.
F's, two T's.
Yep. Perfect.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being
Oh,
here.
Nicole Buffett Art on Instagram.
Nicole Buffett Art on Instagram.
Yeah.
Perfect. Check it out.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.